So, I want to talk about this, okay? When you watch Steins Gate, the real monster of Steins Gate is not what you may first seen. You may watch it and think that it's going to be time, it's going to be space, it's going to be fate, it's the Rounders, it's Mr. Braun, it's Moeka, it's somebody else pulling the strings in the background, right? And that's what the story really wants you to think. But the actual monster of Steins Gate is in front of you the entire time. The real monster of Steins Gate is Okabe Rentaro himself. So, let me turn this up here. If you guys didn't know about this is the Steins Gate NES game that they released for the... what did they release it for? They released that for the Switch version of the motion video Steins Gate Elite. There we go. It took me a minute to get there. And it's just a cute little small short adventure game. It's nothing special, but it's cool that it runs on NES because that means I could pull the dumped ROM and drop it onto my little Miu here, which, as you can see, there we go. Now we got 8-bit Steins Gate for my traveling pleasure. Now, let me get back to talking. Welcome back to Car Chat. My name's Gerald. You're on the Workshopium, and today I want to talk about the true monster of Steins Gate, but not really the true monster of Steins Gate. The true monster of time travel. Because there is a monster lurking right in sight every time you go. If you rewatch Steins Gate and you watch episode 1, I want you to pay close attention to everything Okabe says within the first 3 episodes. Everything he says within the first 3 episodes ends up being true. All of it. Is that a coincidence? It's strange to think about, right? We're not even going to talk about Steins Gate Zero. In this video, Steins Gate Zero has its own points, but I don't like it as much. I do like some of the ideas, but I don't like the execution. Does it make sense? See, in Steins Gate, the monster is Okabe himself. In a time travel story, the monster becomes the time traveler, because necessarily for these stories to work, we have to have a loop. We have to have them trying to accomplish something. Let me see if I can adjust that. Sorry about the whine of the car, guys. It is 39 degrees out here. And then he has to complete this entire cycle over and over again to try to accomplish his aims. But the problem is, the more he does this, the more alien he becomes to the world around him. And my god, dude. Why is it being so noisy? It's not the heat causing that. Make sure this is actually set to heat. Well, I guess you guys are going to hear a little bit of motor sound in this one, huh? Let me cut it off for a second while I finish this up. So, the reason Okabe becomes a monster is more or less that he becomes more and more divorced from reality, more and more divorced from everything else. And as he becomes divorced from reality and divorced from everything that he knows, he begins to take actions that do not benefit the people in the timeline or the time period he currently is in. Basically, he is taking actions that are completely self-motivated. He's deciding who lives and who will die, who should have happiness and who should not. And he does this by his own arbitration method that nobody else has any say in or any way of altering. Bit by bit, he no longer becomes a human. He ceases being human over time because everything becomes a scientific puzzle to him. He can always do it again. There is no risk of death, because when you look at the loop of Steins Gate, and by the way, there's going to be some spoilers in this part, so if you haven't seen Steins Gate, stop, go watch it. It's an amazing show, and come back, okay? When he begins this loop, he can never leave this loop, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We realize that in the beta timeline, there's like 2 constants that happen. And there is a death of a very particular character, and there's Okabe sending his memories back in time. And these happen every single time. They're as consistent as Kurisu always sending him a text message where saying, "Are you okay?" or Suzuha in every possible timeline when she leaves saying goodbye, sayonara. And so we begin to see Okabe morph into this creature, this strange arbitration being where he pretends to have empathy. And he does have empathy, but it's more not for the people around him anymore. It's more for himself, because he's looking for an outcome for himself that he's trying to accomplish. When we look at other time travel stories, we begin to see this happen too. In almost every time travel story, the main character becomes the villain. And he, even if the story frames him as heroic, as being brave and strong, that's because we're seeing it from his point of view. But think about the point of view of every potential timeline that exists within this axis. Let's look at Back to the Future, okay? There is a future where Biff hooks up with Marty's mom, and he set up everything, and they're doing great, and Biff has like a super business. That was the entire point of Back to the Future 2. And all of this, though, was ruined by Marty coming back and making sure his family gets together. And then, worse than that, by him altering the timeline to his advantage, where he basically forces a man into servitude. Which, mind you, his father was already kind of in that role as well, but it's kind of crazy when you think about the knock-on effects that one man's ambition to alter time only comes at the expense to help himself. Even the end of Steins Gate doesn't really help on this fact, because basically there are like two different ways Steins Gate rolls out, right? You have the Steins Gate, which goes to Steins Gate 0, where Okabe, it goes through World War III, spends the rest of his life, and then finds a method to stop himself via Mayuri to send a message back in order to break this loop. But it's Okabe manipulating others to his own benefit to reach the idealized outcome. And do you not see how scary that is? He becomes this arbitration, this agent who knows more about the world than anybody else has the right to know. Groundhog Day's the same way. Hey, in that one, Bill Murray pretty much can do anything, talk to anybody, kill himself, kill anybody, and then he'll come right back to life. He can master every skill in a day because his entire world is Groundhog Day. And by doing so, he becomes less human upon every time he does it, because no longer is he a person. He is now a agent. He is like a god who has stepped outside the paradigm and now is trying to modify things. Now, in Steins Gate, they try to counter this, saying, well, fate will correct this. They do this in a lot of time travel stories where they're like, well, everything's pre-fated, everything's predestined, right? And yet, when we look at the end result, we always see the main characters become this ambitious, ruthless monster that nobody around them truly can understand what they're doing. And I find that very interesting. Why does time travel have this type of ambition building, this type of dehumanizing? I mean, for God's sake, Okabe in Steins Gate gets to the point where he is willing to watch the person he loves dies just to get a precise time. Just to get a precise time, because that's another part of the puzzle. That right there is the darkest thing. It dehumanizes you. It begins taking something from you. It gives you extraordinary power, but it also twists you into something lesser. Your ambition is what ends up corrupting you. And once you have ambition plus potential plus the ability to actually do the things that you think would change the world, then you begin to corrupt the world about it. I can't really use my normal philosophies here, because when I think about this, I was thinking, well, maybe Hegelian dialectic. You have a person come into contact with another, and you two infect each other, and then you slowly become like each other. But in this case, it's not that way at all, because the other person will never truly be changed by you, because you exist within the loop, and they exist outside the loop, and therefore your time alive compared to their time alive is so radically different. Like, we don't know how many times he repeats those days that he keeps looping over and over again. Could have been for a month. Could have been for years. We have no idea how long he is stuck in this cycle, inside this mentality of fight or flight. And what does that do to a person? And would it not cause a PTSD response? Would it not cause this thing? Or would it cause this dehumanization? And we kind of see all of that, the whole spectrum in Steins Gate, which makes it a very fascinating time travel story. It's not a perfect story. My God, it's not. Because I have played the original visual novel, and I gotta tell you, dude, getting that true ending is a guide-only accomplishment, okay? You're not getting it without a guide. And in the anime, you start to see some of the more lazy writing choices they did to give all the girls an ending because of the format. For example, why does he end up helping Suzuha, then Ferris, and vice versa in that order? And then Rukako, then who was it next? I think it's Moeka. Yeah. Why does he always end up helping all the girls? Because he has a ending with each of the girls in the original. And it's a great plot device. It gives them a quest, but it feels a little lazy. You know what I mean? Yeah, the idea of ambition turning you into a monster. The idea that once you have unlimited potential and unlimited time to calculate and think about it, that the real monster in every time travel story is the main character. Like, let's look at H.G. Wells with The Time Traveler. Or even when he goes to the far future, he is something that does not belong and ends up causing a lot of conflict. Like, the societies had finally hit like a balance, and then here comes this man who steps in and he completely ruins it. Mind you, he tips it in favor of one side over the other side, but who is he to make that arbitration? He's not even of the same time period, of the same context. Can a man from a previous generation, from like a different paradigm, step into a modern paradigm and decide things? Well, if we looked at anything from the early 19th century, I don't think we really would want that, would we? And yet, this seems to be the way that our society is oriented. We are kind of already built around this thing where people from 50 years back still have power and then govern over us, while we have to sit here in the trenches trying to comprehend why we can't afford or do anything. And that's also an interesting point too. I think the issue people are having is that we have people of a different time dictating in our lives. People of a different experience have a different frame of reference than we have. And I find that very fascinating. And I think that's why time travel makes the protagonist of each time travel story into the monster. I think that's why Okabe is actually the monster of Steins Gate. Because he is content with letting others suffer in order to achieve his outcomes, all to satisfy his ambition. Alright guys, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. That's been my car chat. And if you guys got anything you want to talk about Steins Gate, comment below. Alright? Peace.